Hi, I wanted to talk about the 2025 budget that is being developed for Strasburg Heritage Society. This is based on uh, stuff that we discussed in the January 2025 board meeting. And video is really for the board members primarily, but I might send it to some other members who would benefit from seeing this process. So anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Joe Devey. I'm the president of the board of trustees. Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about how we're talking about the budget here, and it can be a review for the board members. Let's see. I had put together a timeline for different activities over the next 5 years. This is something that I just kind of made up based on conversations that I'd had with other members and my own thoughts. And it kind of lays out some ideal plan for what we might do over 5 years. And it really is addressing the properties. This is specifically about the properties, not other activities. The properties are the biggest consumer of money. So we had a committee for the buildings that had put together uh, activities for the Shroy House. The activities that we have kind of in front of us now are essentially focused on stabilizing the structure. So there is foundation work needed. There are openings in the building and things that we need to fix so that the building doesn't deteriorate. That's what we're referring to as stabilization. We had a whole long list of stabilization items, and we had come up with estimates. Some of them were estimates that we had previously for some of the work to be done. Some of these things were guesses. Some of them were actual estimates that we got more recently. But still, I would say like half of them are essentially guesses. Still, we came up with this big number, $74,100, and that's a lot of money, and it's actually a lot of work too. So I had spread this out over 18 months, so a year and a half. Just This is just the concept, okay? So then when we make the 2025 budget, the idea is to take about two-thirds of that and put it in 2025. That's about $50,000, and put the other, say, 24,100-ish over in 2026. Again, this is before really working through the math. One thing that's clear is that if we spent that much money, the society will run out of money. And so this light tan bit here is saying that we need to be doing fundraising. And it's not dark because it's not an activity that we've committed to. But if we're going to pursue this sort of vision that's shown here, we're going to have to do fundraising because this first shot will pretty much drain us of all the financial resources that we have. Just to continue on the Shroy House, after we get through the stabilization, the next phase that we talked about doing was some sort of infrastructure work. So this is like getting the electrical system and the heating system done, and the floors and walls and everything closed up and solid and ready to start finishing. Okay, so basically get the house structure pretty well finalized and get the systems finalized. So that's the second phase, and then the third phase is to actually do the detailed restoration work. So this is like, you know, uh, get all the trim, mantles, windows, finishes on everything, um, all that stuff. Bring that into line and historically accurate. And then we're saying if we do all this, we could open in 2029. So we can debate if that's optimistic, but I think it might be, as you'll see. On the barn, we have to do some work this year because our insurance company is saying that we need to work on this addition that's on the east end of the barn. So we have a scheme for that where we take that addition off and kind of put some new covering on the wall that becomes exposed. That really needs to happen this year. But then we talked about doing the other phases of the barn year by year. So we have every year some time, money spent on the barn. Through this year, we talked about the idea of developing the grounds, making some sort of a park-like setting where we could have a kitchen garden to go with the Shroy house and some native plants and nice place to hang out. That's all nice, but I have that all in light green because this won't happen unless it finds a source of funding. So this is not committed. This is just something that we would like to do if we could find a source of funding. Uh, the glass house, the front porch needs to be repaired, and there's some tree trimming that we need to do. So that's work that we need to do this year. After that, we're saying let's back off, skip 2026, 2027, maybe think about resurfacing the driveway and making a little bigger parking pad for the 124 glass house. This line here in 2028 is to start thinking about turning the glass house 124 into our museum and collection storage area and research center, and 2029 is to actually make that happen. So this is vision, right? Could be dreaming. The meeting house building, which is addresses 126 and 128, we're saying we won't do anything on that this year. I mean, we have railing to install. We actually have that in hand, and we'll install that as soon as the weather breaks in 2025, but that's paid for. It just needs to be done. So there's nothing to be budgeted there. But then that's all we do this year. We talked about then next year that we'll probably have to do something with the roof. So we're looking at roof and brick repointing, and then again, leave it alone for 2027. As far as paying for that, we proposed that would have to come from a loan. So we're looking at the buildings as revenue producers, almost think of it as a business. So the business, you need to make investments to continue it along, and this is something we'd take a specific loan out to cover that roof investment when the time comes, and let the building pay for itself. So that's kind of the scheme. So now with that in mind, let me switch over to show you the 2025 budget, and I've done a little bit of work with the budget that we showed at the board meeting. Tracy, treasurer, had put together a budget that had our incomes, our expenses, and our liabilities all tabulated. The thing that she left out was, well, she didn't leave it out per se, but she hadn't populated the numbers. And that was this bit in purple, which was the spending for 2025 on our properties. And those are the things I just talked about. And I have 50,000 here for a Shroy house. That was 2/3 of that big number. So I populated those numbers. The other thing I did in my update to this budget is I took all the budgeted items and I broke the spending out into month by month spending. Some of the things like, say, this one here, miscellaneous income, $300. That's based on past history, unexpected income. So that could come anytime through the year. So I just took that 300 and divided it by 12, and we end up with $25 a month as how that money would come in. Membership, on the other hand, that comes in kind of a lump at the end of the year and the beginning of the new year. So I have that spread across 3 months in the beginning of 2025, and there's also money spread across the November-December timeframe. Anyway, so wherever I could say that we know of certain incomes or expenses, I put them there. So here's holiday home tour ticket sales are in November, December. So that's where that money appears. So I have all these incomes and expenses tabulated here for the entire year, month by month. And with that, it allows me to make this graph. Now this graph shows how much money we have in our bank account, how much liquid cash we have that we're able to spend, our cash balance. And starting 2025, we're up over $90,000. Now if we go to work spending that money according to this budget, we're going to play that down, and we're going to end up at this minimum down in October. Now the red line is a reserve. It's based on a couple things. Mainly, we said we didn't want to drop. We wanted to maintain $25,000 in cash as a contingency. If we really, we don't want to drive our our cash reserves down to zero. So if we get down to 25,000, we're going to stop spending. But we also have to add on to that other things that we have to hold, like the escrows for the rental properties. So that establishes this red line. So you see, if we spend the budget at the rate that we described for this year, we're going to go right down to that contingency. And then at the end of the year, the home tour will make some money for us, and we'll have a little rental income come in, and we'll bring that back up. But that pretty well uses up all of our money, the plan for this year. So board members who have to think about approving this budget at the February meeting, you have to appreciate that that's what we have laid out. And when we looked at it in the January meeting, we looked at tables of numbers, and this might not have been clear that this is what we're talking about. So I want to make it clear. Now, I want to go through the pieces that go into this. So I took the different elements one by one just to show you what's going on. So in the income area of income, we have a couple income generators, but one of the main ones, or the main one, is the rental properties. So this shows how much money we accumulate through the year from the rental properties. And so the blue one is the money we make from the glass house, 124. This reddish one is how much we'll make this year from the meeting house north side, 126, and the green is from the meeting house south side, 128. So this number is the rental income, the rent basically, but then from that we take away the property management fee. We take away 10% of the rent that we just stash away in case of emergency. We have to take out insurance. Might be something else, but so in the end, after we collect the rent and then take out those other expenses, this is what we're left with. Oh, well, it's left. Also, we take out the work that we plan to do. So on the glass house, we take out the expense of the work on the porch, for example. So that's how much, at the end of the year, you can see how much money we will have from the glass house, how much money we'll have from the meeting house north and south. And the whole thing totals about $30,000, right? So we will make about $30,000 from operating this rental scheme as landlords. All right, there are other sources of income, so let's talk about those. I just took that rental income from the properties and I just brought it down here as this gray area. That's just the total of those three rental incomes. So going through here, you can see how big our other incomes are in comparison. We have interest on a CD. We have membership dues, that's this little blue line. We have donations, that's the yellow line. It grows a little bit, grows steadily through the year, and then we have a blip here when extra give happens in November. And then we have Holiday Home Tour this year, and Holiday Home Tour is a big contributor. But you can see how much the rental properties mean in comparison. So those are our incomes. Now, we talked about spending a lot of money on the Schroy house, and we also talked about that we have to work on the east addition of the barn. So here's the spending on the Schroy house and the barn. A lot of money to be spent on the Schroy house, and that's for engineering that has to be done to be able to get permits. We have to have the engineering done, so there's something for the our code inspector to inspect to. We got to hire people to do masonry work, carpentry work, and so on. So that's the Schroy house work, and the barn work is spent. You see where it ramps up right here. I have that in second quarter. That's where we work on that addition, and then afterward we don't spend anything else. So that gray area doesn't grow after we spend the money. So that's what we're proposing 2025, and these things are all on the same scale. You see, they all go to 100,000. So all of our incomes totaled 50,000. And this money on the Schroy house and the barn totals 60,000. So you see we're spending more right there than we will bring in. We also have to spend some of our money on paying off loans. So we have a loan that we need to pay off by August of 2026 because after that the interest rate balloons. So we want to get rid of that loan by then. So we're making payments that are mid $1,600 range per month. And so the amount that we have to pay grows and grows and grows all year. And then at the end of the year, we have some private loans. That's shown in blue. And you see our interest on this loan is not really a big part of it right now. We're really just paying down principal really fast. We're exceeding what the minimum payment would be by quite a bit because this will drive this loan to be paid off by July so that we don't have the balloon interest rate. In comparison, here are all the other main operating expenses. And I put collection, storage, and care here. That's the yellow. We need organization insurance. That's separate from the insurance on our buildings. I have a group of things that are legal and accounting fees. I have other miscellaneous printing, postage, banking, phone, and that sort of stuff. You see that stuff in comparison to those other incomes and expenses, it's not that much. I mean, it's not nothing. If you look at this number, it's still, it's probably, I'm going to say $8,000 in a year. So all that stuff does add up, but it's a lot less than what we're going to pay in loans. We're going to pay, what's that? Almost 25,000 in loans. And we would spend a lot of money on the barn and we'd have these incomes. So that's why, since we're spending on all those things, this is why we would burn down the budget. So, okay, that's interesting. And I think the next obvious question is, what does that mean for 2026? Where does that leave us if we were to do that? Well, here's an answer. So now, if we get to the end of 2025, according to the planned budget that I showed, we won't have a lot of money to start 2026. So maybe we had better not spend money on the Shroy House. So this graph for 2026 shows what would happen if we didn't spend anything on the Shroy House. We're starting off low, so when tax time comes, that's going to use up a lot of the money that we have on hand, and we'll end up right back down at our reserve contingency. And we haven't spent any money on Shroy House. So so we're kind of unable to move at the end of 2025 if we follow the budget that we had proposed. On the other hand, we would have made good progress on the Shroy House. But the idea in that first timeline that I showed was that we can continue work, and we won't be able to. So now we go ahead through here and we pay off our big loan that we were worried about, ballooning interest rates. That was the loan from ENB. So that gets paid off here in July. But then we see this big rise here. That's because we take out a new loan to pay for the roof work on the meeting house. And then we have a dip here where we spend that money to do that work. And then we continue to make money again afterwards. So let's see where this money's coming from. Here's what would be a 2026 picture of income from the properties, and we have this dip because we have to spend a bunch of money. I mean, we borrowed a bunch of money, that was an income, but then we had to spend a bunch of money on the roof. So this is what's coming from the properties. Looking at all the incomes, again, the gray is all the properties rolled together, and then you see these other sources. It's the same list here at first: interest, membership dues, donations. But the green thing is the garden tour. So you see we have a boost right here in June when we do the garden tour. So that's money added to our coffers, and that doesn't change then for the rest of the year. That money is money in the bank. We have holiday home tour at the end, adding money to the coffers. And then this purple thing is the other new thing. The purple is taking out a $10,000 loan to work on the roof. So that is money that goes into our accounts here, and then we have that to draw from. As I said, this is assuming no spending on the Shroy House or barn, because at the start of the year we didn't have enough money to do so. Still a little expense due to insurance and electricity and things like that. The loan payments are a lot lower in 2026. We start off 2026 just like 2025, paying $1,600 and change every month to pay down our loan. But in July that stops. That loan's paid off. But then so that's why the green doesn't grow anymore. Green just stays flat, right? But then we take out this other loan in yellow for the roof. But the roof is a much smaller loan. This is envisioned as a $10,000 loan paid back over 2 years, and that comes out to like $425 or $450 a month payment. That's almost a quarter of what we were paying before to pay down the ENB loan. So our loan payments are much lower in 2026, and these miscellaneous operating expenses are the same. So, okay, if we look at that, we're saying, well, it's great to do what we had planned in 2025. We make good progress on the Shroy House, but then we're stuck at the end of 2025 if we really do all that. Is there anything else we can do? So we have to think about, okay, are we going to commit to some serious fundraising? And we're not talking about fundraising that raises $2,000 or $5,000. I mean, those are good, but you'd have to do a lot of those things to add up to the kind of money that we need to spend. I mean, we had another $25,000 in mind to finish that stabilization work on the Shroy House. So 25,000 is a big number. So how are we going to raise that money? We can find grants. We can have some sort of capital campaign. We can have events, but they'd have to be very productive events. So, or another thing we could do is to take that $10,000 loan, and instead of waiting until, say, August to take out that loan, we could take out that loan in the beginning of the year. And remember, that loan wasn't growing very fast, so we could take that loan out in the beginning of the year. The money will still be here when we need it, and we have other sources of income adding. So, this kind of raises the whole line. Let's just go down here and look at the loan payments. You can see we start that roof loan early in the year, so we have that as a payment for longer, but it does give us more cash to work with throughout the year. So if you look at the final value here for taking out a loan early in 2026 compared to taking out a loan later in 2026, you can see that there is a cost to that. We have more money if we wait to take the loan here, and we have less money, a little bit less, right, if we take the loan at the beginning. But that's a way to get us some cash to work with. Now, if we had that cash to work with, then we could do some stuff with the Shroy House. Here's some nominal amount of spending. This is, I think, $18,000 of spending on the Shroy House through the year. And we could do that, and that will keep us just heads above water, but we make a little bit of progress. Or we could do a combination of things. We could do that, take the loan early and continue the work at a slower pace and raise funds. Now, if we could raise funds, then we could get even more done. But this is the sort of thing I want you to understand that we're up against. It's all well and good to spend money that we have this year, but then where is that going to leave us next year, and are we going to stall? I wanted you to see this whole story, where our money comes from, where it goes, and how that affects our cash on hand and our ability to do things. So I hope that gives you some idea. Here's our 2025 plan, though, to think about. If you have another idea about that, we could sell a property if we want to think without limits, right? Think about if you're happy with this direction, and at the February board meeting, we'll talk about it and vote on it. And I think that's about it. So I hope this is helpful, and I will see you another time.